finishing his match against Karl Nadeberg. I went out to watch a bit of it there earlier, Karl, and it ended in an 8-6 defeat. Could we get your thoughts on that, please?
Yeah, it was a bad match from both players. You know, we struggled with the table. It's brutal out there. You know, if you're not quite on your game and you're not queuing well, the pockets. You know, we've talked about that they're a little bit small at this event. But I tell you, if you're not queuing well, everything just looks so difficult.
Do you think if you'd been played in and had a few more of these events of late, you may have dealt with that better?
Yeah, I mean, I'm using a complete random queue and all. You know, I'm not supposed to be playing really, so I've just sort of rocked up using this carbon fibre queue, what I'm not used to. So every little shot we spin, you know, certain shots I've no confidence in any shot. So it's just literally a complete grind. It's quite funny, really.
But does that frustrate you, considering what a top player you've been in the past, to go out there and play like that? And in turn, does that make you think maybe I should practice a bit more and I'd be interested to see how I could improve?
Not really. I mean, you know, I made the decision many years ago that I was done with the game. It's just, you know, opportunities now and again seem to be appearing when you can enter an open, and obviously I'm here to commentate and do the studio and just kind of try and wing it. But when you're out there, you're trying to win, don't get me wrong, of course you are, but yeah, it's just a strange one, really.
What do you make of Karl Nadeberg from having seen him? I know you're saying you both make mistakes, but having seen him as a player and watched his technique, think of his prospects, because he is still very young.
Yeah, he's very talented. He's a good cueist. He's probably a bit raw here and there, but that's to be expected when you're so young. You know, certain situations, maybe he could have played something a little bit different, but overall, you know, he's a very talented young man, and I think he's definitely got a bright future, and without a doubt the right player winning that match for sure.
But it sounds like if opportunities to play keep coming up from time to time, you'll keep taking them and see how you get on.
Maybe. I just don't know. I mean, listen, I can wing it with the best of them. You know, I can get results that, you know, I've played long enough over the years where you kind of feel like you know what certain shots to play or when to duck and whatever. I just don't know. But listen, I won't be playing full time. I won't be, you know, giving up this to go back on the circuit. That doesn't interest me at all.
Okay, well, there are reflections on your run in the tournament, and you did well. You've had a very good couple of weeks. Perhaps the high point was beating Alban Ocean during the Scottish Open last week in Glasgow. So we will now turn our thoughts to what's going on table one. Ko Pin-Yi against Johann Chua. And it's one of those matches you look at in winner's qualification, Karl, and you say whoever loses this one, that's someone no one's going to want to face in the next round, loser's qualification, to stay in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, these are the matches I'm really intrigued to watch because, you know, I've spoke to a few people and, you know, we keep going on about the pockets. Listen, you can still cheat the pocket, you can still play the game, let's not be naive. It's just, I think if you're struggling, it's the players who have come here with no real form, maybe not won big majors or gone deep. You know, all these players that are not quite in tune with the game, that's when things are going to look difficult. But I believe these two are definitely near the top of the pile, so I think we're in for a good match here.
As Johann Chua starts us off, the other thing, of course, is that obviously one of these will go to the loser side. If they get through, they will then become one of those nightmare draws, because it is a random draw then for the last 64. Each of the players who comes through on the winner's side plays someone who comes through on the loser's side. So if one of these two goes through by the loser's route, they will be someone they will all want to avoid. But that's all for the future. A win here, and you are through to single elimination, which starts tomorrow. That is Ko Pin-Yi, World Masters champion last year. Did pretty well in defence of his title a couple of weeks ago in Germany, got to the semi-finals. I know you love my quirky stats, Karl, so let's get one in early doors in this match. These two have the same birthday.
Wow.
Albeit not in the same year. Both born on the last day of May, so James Uranus will soon be 32. Ko Pin-Yi, later this month, will be 35 years of age. He's been around as a prominent player for such a long time.
first break off reminded me of pretty much every break in mine and the young man's Carl's match. Just couldn't get a look at the 2-ball, and we were pushing out a lot. And what that does do is it leaves you these testing pots, and I can assure you, if you're going to attempt this in that top right corner, this is not easy. Looks like he's having a go. No, he's not had a go, but he's not played this too well. I can only think he has had a go, Michael, because what safety shot was he playing? So maybe he's tried to play the slow roll pot. But I can assure you, when you're behind them, they just look brutal. I mean, this table's 9 feet, but the balls are just so big. So when you're cueing the cue ball, you feel like you've got to be hitting centre of the cue ball so much. That was a good shot to leave himself this angle on the 3.
Johann Chua is at number 67 in the world rankings, but you talk about a false position, and that's certainly the case with him. He just hasn't played, I guess, in enough of the counting events. And in the ones he has played in, you would have to say, perhaps hasn't done quite as well as we might have expected.
Yeah, very talented player, Johann Chua. Can he go on a deep, deep run here in one of these big open events? Certainly got the game. Yeah, held the cue ball nice there. He really did. Wants us to run a little bit. Yeah, he wanted to be straight or just off straight the other way. And the cue ball's just coming to the left a little bit. Yeah, so he's come away from the angle of the 8, and look at what he's faced with. Your cue ball this week has got to be a lot better. You can't be slack with that cue ball. This is an awful shot to be taking on. He's completely missed it. He needs this to go past the side though, and he's got away with one. Well, can he steal the rack? Tough long 8 ball. Play for the 9 in the same pocket. Tell you what, Michael, the pockets are catching everybody out. They really are. I mean, you've still got to hit the centre of the pocket. It's as simple as that, but it's the mindset when you're on the shot. You know, if you're playing on a club table, he probably just gets down and fires that in, because you know you can hit the long rail and it'll still slide in.
Certainly bringing much more of an air of unpredictability to things, but once Coe had missed the 8, it was more inevitability about what would follow. 2 simple pots for Johann Chua to take the opening rack in this race to 9 for a place in single elimination. So elsewhere in this round, a lot of matches underway now. Francisco Sanchez Ruiz level at 2-all with João Grillo. Jeffrey Ignacio was won the first against Niels Fine. Dimitris Lukatos 2-1 up against Skylar Woodward. Duan Kwok Wang has a 3-0 lead now against Petri Makinen. Gary Wilson has won the opener against David O'Cady. Jason Shaw continuing to fly along. He's won all of the first 4 racks against Bizarre Spahiu. Alexa Pechelge, US Open semi-finalist last year, now underway against Dimitri Yungo, and Pechelge has won the first. And Nicholas Dorr is racing away, could very well be the first player through to tomorrow. 5-0 up now on Moritz Neuhausen. Naoki Oi with a 2-0 lead against Imran Majid. And Ko Ping-yi's brother, Ko Ping-chung, the US Open champion, has taken the first rack against Wen An Tan. But here, Ko Ping-yi has lost the first rack, and so Johann Chua has the break in the second.
Oh, what a surprising scoreline that was. Nicholas Doyle against Maurice Neuhausen. 5 racks up. Oh, that's a very tidy break, though. We've seen this with Chua before on day 1. Not holding back on the break. Tell you what, Michael, it's a tough shot, that break. I certainly haven't got that figured out just yet. So inconsistent when I've been playing the matches. Push out. No shot on the red 3.
Normally, by this stage, a player who's in winner's qualification would already have played twice. Copenhagen has actually only played once because slight shortfall in the number of players in the field meant that some of the top players in the rankings got a bye through the first round. So the only match he's played was against the British player So Shaw, beaten by 9 racks to 4. Copenhagen, number 12 in the world, same place as he started the year.
Trying to get the cue ball down towards this 7 ball. He knows the 7 and the 8 could be blockers. You've always got to watch the scratch. Yeah, and he's hit the ball. It's gone slightly wrong, but he's not left anything easy for Pinico. Problem is, if he pots the ball, it sort of does look like the cue ball's going towards that green 6. So he's aiming low on this cue ball. Out of sorts at the minute.
Yeah, you would look at this and say, well, that's guaranteed to be a high quality match, and it may evolve into that, but don't think you could apply that description to what we've seen so far. Johann Chua has played 2 matches, and they were 2 very different matches. His first was a 9-0 win over Vincent Fake, the only Frenchman ever to play in the Mosconi Cup, albeit that was a long time ago. But his second match was against someone at the other end of his career, just starting out, Bernie Regalario of the Philippines, who pushed him hard. Chua only winning 9-7 over his younger compatriot.
Well, that is unfortunate. Had to take a gamble, couldn't really pinch the 3 ball. What an unfortunate scratch this is.
This is like watching your match again, Carl.
Yeah, just crazy things were happening, and I remember rack number 5, was it? Yeah, he should have gone 4-1 up, really. He was in complete command of the match, and he made such a silly error, and from then on it was a complete dogfight to the end. It was bizarre, and at 6-6 I played completely the wrong shot on the 8 ball and missed the 9 ball, Michael.
I think the rack before that was one of the ones that I saw where you had a bad miss on the 6. He potted it, but then hooked himself on the knuckle of the side pocket on the 7 when he looked to have a straightforward run out.
Yeah, that was completely wild, and the ball you're talking about is the exact sort of shot where, you know, when you're trying to wing it and you don't play, and you know, I have no clue about this carbon shaft at all. you don't quite know where to aim on the object ball when you're playing certain shots. It's a weird feeling. It's actually quite stressful playing and all, you know. I found it actually quite stressful playing in matches.
Well, more stressful than being in here with me slagging you off.
This is a doddle. Honestly, this is not a job. This is definitely not a job. This is just.
Don't say that too loud, Carl. We haven't been paid yet.
I mean, we're just sat here drinking. Well, I'm drinking latte, talking about pool. I mean, what more could you want? Yeah, it's like you get anxiety out there when you're playing it. I don't like it. Don't like it at all.
You see, that's the thing. Tony Jacklin, the great golfer of the past, used to say, you have to want to eat pressure for breakfast, lunch and tea. You've got to want it. You've got to love that feeling in any sport.
Yeah, I used to love it, but I'm not so sure I do now. But one thing's for certain, Copigny is loving stealing that rack.
Yeah, scratching the side from Chua. Copigny did the rest, and they're level at 1-all. Moritz Neuhausen has got off the mark, but he's still got a long way to come back against Nicholas Dorr. He's 5-1 down in the All-German clash. Jason Shaw now 4-1 in front against Bizarre Spahiu. Clint Janssen, who's really made a name for himself here this week, British player, has taken the first against Mario He. And Torsten Homan, two-time world champion, will be off to his hometown of Fulda once again later in the summer. He's won the first in another clash of the generations with the young Cledio Caci.
We did say before this tournament there'll be plenty of drama. The tables have been set up for drama. We've already seen it. This is day 3. Oh, nice break. Is it golden?
It is absolutely golden. Well, how things have turned around. What was it, about 4 or 5 minutes ago, Copigny was out of sorts, as you said. It looked like he was about to go 2-0 down. And now, thanks to a scratch and a golden break, he's leading 2-1. How quickly this game can turn around. Gives me a chance just to ask you, what cue were you using?
I was using the same cue Fedor Gorst plays with. It's a beautiful cue. It really is. But you've got to be, you know, you've got to be playing a lot. You've got to be putting lots of hours in. It's not so much like winning matches, because I've won matches in the last couple of weeks, and as you said, I've actually beat some really good players and I've won some close matches. It's more in your own head. So as I said, the cue's absolutely lovely. It's a white carbon shaft on a Viking butt, but I'm just simply not used to it.
Was it the same cue you used throughout the 2 events?
Yes. Fedor did say to me the tips sounding a bit weird. So last night he said he'll give me one of his spares, but I thought, well, there's no point in doing that, is there, when I've been playing with it? I might as well just carry on.
2-1 to Cope.
But it is a really nice cue, and as you know, Michael, you're seeing most of the tour now using carbon fibre shafts. I mean, when I decided my time was up, carbon fibre shafts was just coming out. Pretty much most of the tour use them now, but the Cole brothers don't. They have still stuck with the wood shafts. But I think if I did play full time, I'd stick with the wood. I really do believe I feel better with that in my hand.
It's something that's very noticeable, the difference between the 2 major cue sports disciplines, snooker and pool. In pool, there's so much talk about the different cues, and players spend a huge amount of money on them. In snooker, there's very little of that. It's all about feel, and some of the best players you've ever seen, world champions, use cues which are technically awful and only cost them a few pounds.
Yeah, and I always think when I've been to the snooker events and I've been backstage chatting with the top pros and looking at the cues, the tips are all very similar and a similar shape, and there's a bit of difference. But pool's so different. You could get Copigny's cue and have a couple of shots with it and look at the tip, and then grab Johann Chua's cue, and it could be like night and day. It's just what you get used to, isn't it? But it's these type of shots now where he's not quite got where he wanted with the cue ball. So yeah, potting the ball's easy, but he's getting on the pink 4. So if he can avoid balls, he's got to play this with loads of spin. When you're trying to spin this big cue ball, that's where you've got to have full belief in your equipment. Can he avoid a ball? Yeah, I mean, look how much spin he's got on the cue ball. That really was a beautiful shot he's played there. He just couldn't do that. He could not pick up Johann Chua's cue and play that shot. He'd missed the 3 ball. There's another look at the spin. Boy, he got a lot into that cue ball. Still got a bit of work to do. Purple 5 goes in left centre and left top corner.
Mentioned about Ko Pin-Yi being at 12th in the rankings, and if you're a regular viewer of these matchroom events, you might think, well, how's he not a bit higher than that? Well, you can understand that feeling because he's done very well in a couple of events that don't count towards the rankings. Winner of the World Masters last year and runner-up in the Premier League earlier this year. Now, those are small field invitationals, so that's why they don't count towards the rankings, but it's also why they're very high quality fields. They're very, very difficult to come through and achieve success in. He's beaten by Shane Van Bonen in that Premier League final recently. And as I said, put up a very good defence of his World Masters title, beat Francisco Sanchez Ruiz 10-1 in the quarterfinals, and pushed Joshua Filler hard before going down 11-8 in the semis. Had a good run in the Scottish Open as well last week. And if you think that sounds small time, think again, because the field there was absolutely magnificent. And you look at some of the players he beat Fedor Gorst, who had won the World Masters a few days earlier. He beat Lucius Yap very comfortably and was 1 rack away from getting to the final in Glasgow, losing to the eventual champion, Duong Quoc Quang. So lots of form coming in here. And after a bit of a struggle early on, he's starting to show some of it in this match.
So Ko Pin-Yi's looking good. Interesting match on table 4. Mario He, he's playing Clint Ianson. Clint Ianson, one of the top English 8-ball pool players in the country, in England. Been playing a lot of Chinese 8-ball, so the reason why he's decided to enter one of these events is because Chinese 8-ball uses the same size ball. Very rare you would see an English 8-baller dabbling in 9-ball because it's completely different, you know, the size of the balls. So the more English 8-ballers that play Chinese pool, you might see them at some of the 9-ball events. That sounds very difficult, but it's not.
Is he a full-time player?
Yeah, I think he is a full-time player. He won the English 8-ball World Championships, I want to say 2 years ago. Yeah, I think 2 years ago. But obviously, you know the money that's on offer in China playing that game, so that's why you see a lot of the English 8-ballers going playing China's version of 8-ball.
So Johann Chua has not been back to the table since that scratch in the second rack. Golden break in the third for Ko Pin-Yi, followed by a break and run in the next. Ko Pin-Yi goes 2 clear. He's won 3 racks in a row, and he leads 3-1. Yeah, 1-1 in that match between Mario He and Clint Ianson. Francisco Sanchez Ruiz starting to get to grips with things a bit more against Xiao Grio, pulling away a little now and leading 4-2. Claudio Cacci 2-1 up on Torsten Homan. Jeffrey Ignacio has won all of the first 3 racks against Niels Fine. 3-all between Skylar Woodward and Dimitris Lukatos. In form, Duong Quoc Quang 4-0 up against Petri Makinen. David O'Cady 3-2 up against Gary Wilson. Hazar Spahughes pulled another one back against Jason Shaw, so it's now 4-2. Nicholas Dorr has extended his lead to 6-1 over Moritz Neuhausen. And Naoki Oi is also 5 racks clear, 5-0 against Imran Majid. Ko Ping Chung going very nicely, like his brother. He's leading 3-0 over Nguyen An Tan. And it's 1-all between Bui Trong An of Vietnam and the former World Championship semi-finalist from Hungary, Oliver Szolnoki. Early stages of winners' qualification round. In this one, Ko Pin-Yi has taken early control.
Good cue ball, and what I mean by that is it's the arc below the 9. Held his hand up because if you've watched Nineball for a couple of years now, you know the players are trying to pot it in the side pocket. It's the green 6 where he holds his hand up, but he will not be sorry, I can assure you. Can't pot the 1 ball. Unfortunately, Ko Pin-Yi stood in the way to see if he can bank it into the bottom left corner. I don't know if there's a ball in the way. I think there is a ball on the rail, so he can't play the bank. Yeah, there's the red 3, so the bank shot is not available. I'll tell you what playing has done now, Michael. It's given me a newfound respect for the top tier players. Not that I didn't respect them, but I think it's just you don't appreciate how difficult it really is travelling around, constant playing on the circuit. That's tough action, that.
It's funny to hear you say that, considering you did it for so long, but it's amazing how quickly you can forget how things really feel when they're actually happening.
And like you alluded to, you've got to want to do it, haven't you? If you don't want to put the effort in, and you don't want to put the practice in, and if you're trying to do it a bit half-hearted, forget about it, because somebody somewhere in the world is putting all the effort in possible to be a world champ or a US Open champ. And pool players' ears have pricked up because the news yesterday that Matchroom announced across socials the new investor in the company. That's going to be good news for pool and more pool tournaments around the world. Needs a little bit of luck here. Not really got it. Yeah, it's a little thin one, but he knows he's left the pot.
Just picking up on what you were talking about there, that was a quote that I mentioned earlier from great British golfer Tony Jacklin. I'm going to mention another great British golfer, Nick Faldo. I remember seeing him being interviewed, and he was being asked, just very simply, what is it that set you apart and made you the most successful golfer of your generation? And he said, well, you've got to want it. And the interviewer said, yeah, but everyone wants it, don't they? And Faldo's response was, yeah, but you've got to want it. And you know what he means, because everyone's out here trying, or at least thinking they're trying their best and putting in the effort, but it's just got to mean everything to you. You've got to be willing to make the sacrifices. And I always feel, looking at top sportsmen, the thing is, you're putting in all that work and effort, knowing that it might not actually lead where you want to go anyway. It might all be, not quite for nothing, but it might not be worth it in the end. And that's really something that requires a huge amount of desire to put all that work in, knowing it still might not lead you where you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get what Sir Nick Faldo means by what he said in that interview. I didn't see the interview, but I totally get what he means. And I started to think about Ko Pin-Yi, actually, and the fact that, you know, we're talking about travelling all over the world, and I think at some point we will see a shift. The more tournaments that Matchroom keep adding to the tour, if you look at someone like Ko Pin-Yi, he's at every single event with his brother Ko Pin-Chung. The open events, Ko Pin-Han, the younger brothers here, they are everywhere together. If one of them's playing and the others are not, they're watching, they're going for dinner. I mean, that is a big advantage. I know when I was on the circuit, I was literally just travelling around on my own, really. You know, you think you're here with your friends and whatever else, but it's hard to be true friends with somebody when you're competing and you're trying to get in Moscow any cups, right? There's always that little bit of edge where you want to be in the events and you don't care if they're not in the event because it's about you, isn't it? And I think that's why if you see Jason Shaw, Ara Shaw, his wife, comes to probably 90% of the events, so I think that's a calculated move. He feels better. Joshua Filler's got his wife, the only lady pro on the circuit. Albin Ocean's best mates with Mario and Max Lechner. I think that's a big advantage, I really do.
Maybe that's why your record in the Moscone was so sensational. Maybe you thrive more on that, on the 1 week in the year where you are there with your mates and you are all on the same side for the week. And indeed the World Cup as well, you had a very good record in that.
Yeah, I was just going to say the World Cup as well. I just felt so much more relaxed. I've always felt more comfortable in a team environment, whether it's, you know, a golf team or whatever. I am a bit of a people person, to be fair. I like being around people, having a laugh and a joke, and like I said, I think that's why I found it very stressful. And it's weird, you know, you're playing out in the arena, Michael, and as you said, you come over and had a nosy. When it were 3-3, there were two guys watching. Bless them, they've watched every match that I've played. When it was 6-6, there were about 50 people there. I was like, this is stressful, this.
Well, someone who isn't feeling too much stress by the look of things at the moment is Ko Pin-Yi, because he has steadily taken firm control of this match. And that is his 4th rack in a row. He leads 4-1. You mentioned his brothers there. They're all in action at the moment, all 3 of them. Ko Ping-Han on the loser's side, 3-1 up against Petr Urban of the Czech Republic. And also on the loser's side, worth keeping an eye on Bernie Regalario. He's 3-2 down at the moment against the British player So Shaw. So action going on both winners and losers' sides right now. You've spotted something else there, Carl?
I can't remember if I was in comms with you yesterday or the day before. So Shaw was playing Ko Pin-Yi. I'm not sure if it was yourself or Phil Yates, and I said, you got to watch out for So Shaw. He plays an unusual game of 9-ball. He literally attacks everything. He whacks the balls around. He'll go for his shots. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, that would be an upset if he was to pull that one off. Sam Henderson, the young American player who we've been talking about. We saw him on the main table. He's won the first against Abdullah Al-Yusuf. Nicholas Dorr leading the race to be first man through. 7-1 up now against Moritz Neuhausen. Ko Ping-Chung has a 4-0 lead over Wenan Tan. Francisco Sanchez Ruiz 2 ahead of Zhao Grio once again at 5-3. And Cledio Kachi, the young player who made such a name for himself when he made his debut on the World 9-Ball Tour last summer, has a 4-1 lead over the veteran Torsten Homan. Back to this one.
I feel like I've spotted something else as well, Michael, within the game of pool. I don't think you can be fat. I was sat in my chair, I was looking at my belly, right, it's hanging over my trousers, and when I'm walking around the table, I just didn't feel good in my shirt and all this. And you know, if you look at Jason Shaw, he's trimmed up, Phil's trimmed, Ko Pin-Yi's trimmed, Albin's trimmed. They're all going to the gym. You can't be fat and play pool.
Well, I think something you learn as you get a bit older and your natural fitness goes a little bit is that if you do feel good in yourself and you feel reasonably fit and healthy, it makes you better at absolutely everything, even mental tasks, things that don't require any physical prowess. So you're definitely correct about that.
Well, look at Ronnie O'Sullivan. He's nearly 50 years of age. He's into his gym and his healthy food. I mean, if he didn't do that, he might have been retired bleeding 10 years ago or something. Well, this is a really tricky shot. I don't know if he can play it super thin and just miss the 8-ball, come down towards the 9, or does he have to come down the right-hand side table? This is scary, this. But he is a master with the cue ball. I feel like he's the best. Look at this. This is plumb. What a line he's found there. Beautiful.
It was an accurate observation at the time, but it's hard to believe only about 20 minutes ago you were saying he was out of sorts. He was at the time, absolutely, but totally different now.
And that's what this game can do to you. A few things go wrong, you don't quite deliver the cue how you want, then it all depends on what shots you then become faced with. It's almost like the golden nines helped him settle into it. It was just one shot. It was a lucky shot as well. You take him, of course.
That's why you've always got to keep going and persevere when you're struggling. Now, it was an early stage of the match anyway, so he was never going to let his head drop too much. Something like that can happen totally outside of your control and turn everything around. Just picking up on what you're saying there about the players being into their fitness, I remember there was one event, I think it was the Championship League, which was the forerunner of the Premier League, when we did that for the first time in Milton Keynes 3 years ago. And of course, that was a whole complex of the hotel, the venue, and the football stadium all in one. And the first thing I saw when I got out of the car, arriving at the event, was Alban Ocean doing laps round all that. And that shows you where the game's at now.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't join him, Michael, because I know you're a keen runner.
Well, I think you hyped that up a little bit too much, which is fine. Fine with me.
Listen, I know you're at the vents, you're going running. You've never fell asleep on me like Phil Yates has.
Well, Phil's getting on in life. He doesn't get to have his afternoon nap at these open events. He's got to squeeze it in somewhere. Well, what a match this has turned into. Copigny did not have the start he was looking for at all, and now he's playing as well as ever. Cruised through that rack, 5 in a row now, and he's past the halfway point in his quest for the 9 racks he needs. Skylar Woodward is just ahead of Dimitris Lukatos now at 4-3. Jeffrey Ignacio also leading a close one early on against Niels Fine. That one's 3-2. Gary Wilson edging ahead of David O'Cady, 4 racks to 3. Mayuki Oi has a 5-2 lead over Imran Majid. Oliver Shulnocky has won the 3rd rack to go 2-1 up on Bui Trong An. All those matches in this winners qualification round. Remember, the 32 players who come through this round will each be drawn against one of the players who comes through losers qualification later today. Some good players already in losers qualification. A lot more will join them. Max Lechner is an obvious one. But you look at people like Jan Uski, Karl Nadeberg, Chang Yulong, Billy Thorpe. These are all very competent players, and any of those who get through will not be a welcome draw for any of those who advance on the winner's side. 5-1 Co.
Beautiful break off, 1 ball into the side pocket. No love on the 2 though. Can't play the bank in the side, even if that brown 7 wasn't in the way, he wouldn't. You've got to get onto the red 3. I wonder if he can chip off it thin. That's got to be the shot. Play off it thin, send the cue ball up to the pink 4 ball. Because even if you don't get the hook, how do you pot the 2 and get on the 3? That's got to be the shot. Seems easier sat here, Michael, spotting the shots. The big question is, Michael, you watch a lot of pool. Did you enjoy me? Did you enjoy watching me battle over there?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the answer is, actually.
It's a big fat no, isn't it? I can tell.
No, well, I love watching all Q sports anyway, whoever's playing. Feels a bit different when, you know, it's someone you know very well playing in the match.
I think the big one is when you and Phil Yates enter the US Open. Me and JJ can come and watch you two.
Well, you'll be too busy commentating. Someone will have to do it during our brief involvement in the tournament itself.
He's been looking at this for ages, so I can only feel like he just doesn't fancy it. It looks just so obvious, playing off that left edge. Listen, he's one of the best players in the world. I'm not going to argue with him. I don't like this, though. It's very dangerous. Well, he's missed a big trick there for me. Not saying the 2 ball goes, he might have slightly got away with it, but if you can think about where the red 3 is, he sent the 2 ball up towards the red 3, so if you don't get a good safety, it's easier to get on the red 3. As where if the cue ball's up the top and the 2's down here, Chua's got to play a worldie. Now this is clearly very tight. Mr. Stephen Feeney sat in the background there. I know he's a well-renowned coach. Made his name in the world of snooker, but he does a bit of golf and darts now, Michael. I'm guessing you know him pretty well.
Yeah, he's known as the sight right man. Yeah, the golf as well, actually. I met him at an event probably about 18 months ago. He had Stephen Gallagher, the former Ryder Cup player, with him. They'd been working together. Yeah, there he is. I mean, you have people who come up with coaching techniques and new ideas that prove very successful in a particular sport. Now, obviously, you can understand how a good snooker coaching technique would translate to pool, but the fact that it translates to darts and golf as well, so to come up with something that works across 3 entirely different disciplines is pretty much unheard of.
Yeah, he's a very smart man. I've had dinner with him a few times. and I think, you know, the more money that comes into the sport, you'll see a lot more of this, I suppose, won't you? Coaches and, you know, the mental side of the game. Players are always trying to get that extra edge. I always feel like I'd have benefited from a caddy, you know, someone like that. Someone
Was the queue too heavy for you to carry around?
Yeah, someone to carry the queue and go and get me water and latte. No, just somebody to chat to, you know, like just to, you know, when it's your downtime. I often feel like that's just as important as playing and competing for these pros.
So maybe you've solved the puzzle there. Stop going out for all these dinners with Steve Feeney, and you know you'll be fit enough to play in these tournaments like you were talking about earlier. Just another match on the losers' side. I want to keep an eye on. Michael Feliciano from the Philippines. He got to the final of 2 decent-sized ranking events last year, and someone who everyone would feel could go very deep in a tournament like this. But he's 4-2 down against Tolian Han, who, of course, a very useful player himself. World Cup finalist with Singapore the summer before last. It's just another match to keep an eye on in losers round 3. Remember, if you get through that, you're 1 round away then from single elimination. And also in that round, John Morrow of Canada has lost the first 3 racks to Tommy Donlan, former Mosconi Cup player from many years ago. Stories going on absolutely everywhere in Telford today. The story here is that Ko Pin-Yi is in total control and 4 balls away from making it half a dozen racks on the spin.
Just haven't really seen Johann Chua at the table, have we? It's all been about Ko Pin-Yi, this one.
Yeah, and I think he has grounds to feel aggrieved, because if you miss an easy ball and let your opponent take control of the match, okay, you've only got yourself to blame. But he had an unfortunate scratch in the second rack, and even as early as that in the contest, it's proved to be a massive turning point. 6-1 to Ko Pin-Yi. Now, I talked about a lot of stories developing here. Well, here's another one in winners' qualification on table 5. João Grillo of Portugal is level at 5-all with the world number 1, Francisco Sanchez Ruiz. Also, all square on table 3 between Skylar Woodwards and last year's quarter-finalist Dimitris Loukatos. Clint Ianson, the British player we've been talking about, 3-2 up on Mario He. Duong Kwok Hwang leads Petri Mackinnon 5-2. Kledio Kachi, the teenage Albanian, now has a 6-2 advantage over Torsten Homan. 4-all between Gary Wilson and David O'Cady. Bizarre Sparhughes come back into it a bit against Jason Shaw. Hanoi Open champion now leading 6-3. Nicholas Dorr is the closest to the target. 8-2 up on Moritz Neuhausen, so on the hill and 1 away from being the first man through. And Naoki Oi now has a 5-2 lead over Imran Majid. Ko Pin-Yi already just 3 away from victory.
Well, the break just looked a little bit flat there, a little thin. Let's have a look where the cue ball goes. Well, it wasn't too bad, it got kicked quite early. That's why it looked a bit ugly. I've always enjoyed watching Ko Pin-Yi play the game of 9-ball. I like the way he sort of gears himself up for the big shots, and he's got such a wonderful smooth cue action, times the cue ball very good. I always feel it's very rare he plays the wrong shot. This is his way of gearing himself up. Look, he's making sure he's got the chalk on the tip. Really looking down the line of the pot. He always does this as well with his cue. He sort of strokes the cue, building himself up for the shot.
Just about made it far enough. In a tournament where he did very well last year in London. He's looking to follow up his World Masters success from a few weeks earlier with another title. Completing the double that Joshua Filler had done the year before, but it was actually Filler who ended his hopes of doing that with a wonderful display in the semis, beaten by 11 racks to 1. And even though it was a really good year for Copigny 2023, he had a lot of very heavy defeats. Just after that, he got to the quarterfinals of the Spanish Open and lost 10-0 to Skylar Woodward. And I remember saying, well, you might never see that happen again. It actually happened in the very next Matchroom Open event. At the European Open, he was whitewashed by Anton Raga. But overall, as I say, very good year. The World Masters win, semis in this, quarters in the Spanish Open. Good Hanoi Open as well, got to the last 16. Took Federer Gorst to knock him out there. And he did win a world ranking tournament last year, right at the end of 23 in Singapore.
Playing this into the corner pocket. You can still hit the rail a little bit. It's just all about the pace it goes in. Let's see where the 6 goes. It goes in the middle. I think some of the players, I think they are over-egging the, the tightness of these tables. You can still play the game on them. I think it's just the players that over the years maybe have been used to the easy pocket, but this is definitely the way the game should go. You should always be able to cheat the pocket enough, but you should always be under pressure. It should be the players that are coming to these big major tournaments, these open events and the majors, the Masters, US Open, Worlds, who are queuing well.
When you look at this performance from Copigny, it underlines that even with the tight pockets, it is possible to play very, very well. He certainly is, and he now leads 7-1.
Yeah, and I know at the beginning of the match probably was a bit harsh, thinking he wasn't really on song, but when you look at the 2 shots he missed, there were them sort of long distance ones where he's not really had a shot in the match yet, has he? So I'm going to send out a little apology.
So Copigny closing in on a place in single elimination. His brother Ko Ping Chung might not be far behind him because he leads 5-1 now against Winan Tan. Yuki Oi also on the brink of getting through, just needs a couple more. 7-2 against Imran Majid. Bizarre Spahiu, the Albanian World Cup player, is fighting back very well. Now trails only 6-4 against Jason Shaw. And Abdullah Al Yusuf, former world semi-finalist, has won 3 in a row after losing the opener to the young American Sam Henderson. Still 5-all between Francisco Sanchez Ruiz and João Grillo. Dimitris Lukatos now 5-4 up on Skylar Woodward. Petri Makinen, Finnish player, is coming back a bit against the Scottish Open winner Duong Quoc Hoang. Vietnamese player now leads 5-3.
Two ball needs to be bouncing. Well, it doesn't matter because he's hooked behind the purple 5. Eagle Eye Jason Shaw, he's playing out in the arena, table 20. He's playing Albania's Basar Spahiu. He's leading 6-4, so that's quite a tight match Jason's involved with there. Actually looks on the live scores that we've got quite a lot of close matches happening, Michael, other than the one we're watching.
Yeah, gave as many of them as I could fit in between racks there. Don't think we had time to mention David Al-Qaedi. I was telling you about that earlier on. Gary Wilson was ahead there, but Al-Qaedi in front now at 5-4. Jeffrey Ignacio pulling away a bit against Niels Fine at 5-2. The top 100 WNT pros in the world rankings at the end of this event will gain automatic entry to the World Championship, and Ignacio is currently at number 100 in that list.
The big $1 million Nineball World Championships in Saudi Arabia, $250,000 to the winner. We're just a few weeks away, Michael. That is going to be an epic week over there. Can't wait for that one.
Yeah, well, you look at that $250,000 to the winner. Do some quick maths. That's about 4 times what FSR won in Poland last year. So absolutely transformative. But the pressure on the players there is going to be colossal, because you can make it a really lucrative year in 1 week, even by getting to the later stages. It will be huge money. And it's going to be interesting to see how players deal with that. Some will thrive on it, others will find it very difficult to deal with. Johann Chua was such a star performer at the World Cup of Pool in Spain last summer, and I think people will have been looking forward to seeing him here, because he didn't actually do all that well in the other matchroom events that he played in last year. He claimed some notable wins along the way. There's players like Jason Shaw and Joshua Filler, but he wasn't there for the business end of any of those tournaments, and anyone tuning in hoping to see some of what they saw at the World Cup has basically joined them as a spectator.
Yeah, I feel like the way these open events are set up, you know, 256, playing down to single elimination, last 64. I feel like there's 3 parts to the event, Michael, personally. I feel like this is still round 1. I feel like getting through to the final 64 then becomes round 2. And then it's about going from 64, 32 to 16, because that's when Sky Sports TV were on 3 tables. So I believe if you go out in this, you know, the double elimination format round, I feel like you've lost in round 1, to be honest.
Yeah, it feels like you've not really got into the meat of the tournament. But when you have that in the later stages, once we get beyond today, and you're playing 2 matches every day if you keep winning, one good day can just completely transform your tournament. Have a good day tomorrow, you go from someone who's been in the last 64 to someone who's been in the last 16, and there's a huge difference. And then, of course, you have a good day on Saturday, you go from that to being at least a semi-finalist. So it all progresses very, very quickly. And of course, the money goes up slowly at first, but then goes up very, very quickly as you go through the rounds, and that brings ranking points as well, and helps your attempts to get into things like the Reyes Cup and the Mosconi Cup. And we've got that extra narrative this week, as I was saying, of trying to be in that top 100 to get into the World Championship. And I say automatic qualification. There's no qualifying tournament as such. If you're not in that top 100, you need to be one of the 28 invitations. And my understanding is most of those have been assigned already, so there won't be much room to get in through that route.
Just wants to be careful with the cue ball here. Didn't play that. He definitely did not play the cue ball into the 9. So the fact it's hit it full ball, and he has this shot. I'm sure he was trying to slide up towards the 8 ball. It's actually worked out very nice indeed. He can just roll forward. Feel under pressure, Michael. There's a load of kids just joined us.
I know, yeah. School tour has come to look at us. If you don't work hard in school, kids, this is where you could end up, as pool commentators. I'll give a wave there. You're on TV. There you go.
Well, in the end, this is turning out to be a clinic, isn't it? Just don't feel like we've seen much of Chua at all. Just not really had many shots.
Yeah, it's been hard to think of things to say, really, about this match as it's gone on, because it's like watching a Copenhagen practice session. Well, I can't believe I'm saying this, whatever it is, only about 40-45 minutes after the match began. Ko Pin-Yi is on the hill against Johann Chua. Let's look at some other scores from the loser side. I was telling you about Michael Feliciano, 5-3 down to Tolian Han. And sometimes you got to use a cliche. Tommy Donlan is simply rolling back the years against John Morra. He leads him 5-1. Mohamed Soufi, World Championship runner-up last year, leading 7-4 against Tim Singh. Bernie Regalario has turned it round to go 4-3 up on So Shaw. Back on the winner's side, João Grillo is 2 away from a massive result against Francisco Sanchez Ruiz. He leads him 7-5. Cledio Cachi now on the hill, brother of defending champion Eklund Cachi. It's 8-2 against Torsten Homan. Dimitris Lukatos also closing in on a bit of an upset, 6-4 against Skylar Woodward. 4-all between Mario He and Clint Jansen. David Alcady has won rack 10 to go 2 clear of Gary Wilson at 6-4. Nicholas Dorr still looking for one more, leads Moritz Neuhausen 8-3. And Oliver Sholnocki 3-1 up on Bui Trong An. And finally, Ko Pin-Yi has had his first dry break. Well, you talk about a glimmer of hope. I'm not sure it's even as big as that, but at least Johann Chua is getting to the table with a chance to pot a few balls here.
Yeah, I'm sure Chua has resigned himself to the fact he'll go to LQ. That's the loser's qualification match, or the left side of the draw. It's a bit of a funny one. Certain people around the world call it either the left side of the draw or the loser's side. It always sounds very complicated to people who don't understand the format of a pool event, but it's actually not. 256 players, all playing for a spot in the final 64. You get one life. Once you get to the final 64, there are no more lives. We play single elimination. So we'll have 32 players undefeated, and we'll have 32 players with one loss. They will be drawn winners against losers. So it is simple.
Yeah, and if Chua, as seems inevitable now, does go to losers qualification, he faces a very tough match there. He'll be playing Chang Yu Long. Well, he's just reminding himself as much as anyone else here. Nothing wrong with his own game. He just hasn't really had a chance to get involved.
Yeah, this all goes a bit weird, Michael, when you're not involved in a match. It's like that shot there just finished a little awkward. So now he's got a bit of a stretchy one. It's straight. He's got to draw the cue ball back. It's easy to overhit this ball or leave it where his hand is. That's coming around perfect.
The dry break opened the opportunity for Johann Chua, and he's taken it very nicely. So after losing 8 racks in a row, he's won that one, but it's still a long, long road back. Ko's lead is now 8-2. That was a quick rack, so not a great deal has changed in the other matches since I last updated you. What has happened, though, is that Bizarre Spahiu of Albania has got another one back against Jason Shaw, so he's now only one behind him at 6-5. Abdul Al Yusuf starting to take control against the young American Sam Henderson. It's 4-1 there. Nicholas Dorr still on the hill at 8-3 against Moritz Neuhausen. And over on the loser's side, Ko Ping Han, I was telling you about his involvement. All 3 Ko brothers in action at the same time here. Well, the youngest of them leads Peter Urban 4-3, looking for a place in losers qualification later. Bernie Regalario, young Philippines player, has turned it round to lead 5-3 against So Shaw. Remember their races to 8. Tommy Donlan 5-1 up on John Morra. Tolian Han now leads Michael Feliciano 6-3. Dry break from Ko Pin-Yi in the previous rack. Johann Chua has had one here. And in doing so, he has left a chance for Ko Pin-Yi to finish his day's work right here and now.
The beauty of getting to that winner qualification round is the fact that you do get your 2 lives, because when you lose in this round, winners qualification, you go straight to LQ, so that is a bit of a bonus. I lost in the round before winners qualification, which then means you have to win 3 in the losers, so that match in round 2 of winners, boy, it's a big match. All them children that are on a school day out, Michael, I've got to go help them at the pool table after this. I mean, if they watch me match, they might be thinking, can we find somebody else?
They could teach you a thing or two. Of course, they're not much younger than the man you were playing.
Yeah, how old is Carl Nadenberg? 17, 18?
He's 18, he was born 2006.
Wow, big future. But there's a lot of young talent on the circuit. Nineball pool, I tell you what, it is in a healthy position. There's so many young players from all over the world that play at such a good level.
What did you make of the young Indonesian player you played the other day?
Do you know his age, Michael? Do you know how old he is?
I think he's 21. Don't quote me on that, but I did know at the time. I think 21.
Yeah, I was really impressed with his game. I'm actually not sure. I know he plays Anton Raga. Has he played him, or is it a little bit later? I wanted to keep a keen eye on that match, because when he played me, I tell you what, he played unbelievable.
Yeah, that's in the next session of matches, Alvin Angito.
Oh, it's on table 1 as well, so the keeper might even be doing the comms on that one. Oh, Ko Pin-Yi sends this one into the bottom rail.
Yeah, I've just checked that. He was a little older than we perhaps thought. 24 years of age, Alvin Angito. We were saying, so much potential in that country. The 4th most populated country in the world. And of course, they don't have many big international sports stars at all, so imagine what it could do for the game there if someone was to come through.
Nice pace. That was his plan. Hit on the low side of the 3 ball, just get some sort of distance.
Francisco Sanchez Ruiz, the world #1 and world champion, has got one back, and he needed it against João Grillo. He closes to 7-6. Jason Shaw has won the 12th rack. So a little bit of breathing space again against Besar Spahiu. That one is now 7-5. And Nicholas Dorr of Germany started his week by grabbing some attention with a win over Darren Appleton. He's now the first player through to single elimination. He has beaten his fellow German Moritz Neuhausen, a World Cup finalist with Germany last summer, by 9 racks to 3.
Shock result there. But Moritz will go over to that losers qualification match, so he's still got it all to play for.
Mohamed Soufi is through to losers qualification. Last year's World Championship runner-up has beaten Tim Singh of Norway by 8 racks to 4.
You know, Michael, at 8-1, you sort of feel the match is over, but it doesn't take much, you know. So all of a sudden, start putting yourself under a little bit of, you know, silly pressure, because it could easily be 8-5 this. So that's just 4 racks onto the side of Chua, and you may have only played 1 or 2 shots in that 4-rack spell. And then, boy, you start to feel it a little bit, because you think, well, how am I going to lose this from 8-1 up? But believe me, it can happen. Yeah, that was a beautiful shot. He realised he had to play it quite slow in case he hit the long rail, which he grazed, and it still went in, so that just shows you the pocket will still take him at the right pace.
Such a dramatic route to that World Cup win with the Philippines last summer. In the opening match, they played the hosts and holders, Spain, and beat them. Then, as hosts, Spain were eligible to have a B team. They beat them in the second round. And then Hill finishes against the Coe brothers in the quarters, against World Cup specialists Austria in the semis, and even the final. It was 11-7 against Germany, but doesn't tell the full story at all. It looked like it was going to be a landslide, and then the German pair came charging back. And that made the Philippines the first nation ever to win the World Cup 4 times. Moving 1 ahead of China, with whom they had previously shared the record. At one stage it looked as though it was going to be a final between Philippines and China, perhaps to decide who would be the first ever 4-time winners, but China were beaten by Germany in a close semi. Another player is through. Claudio Cacci got to the last 16 of the Spanish Open last summer, has beaten the 2-time world champion Torsten Homan by 9 racks to 2, and is the second player through to the final 64.
He's grinding away here. Can't blame him. You know, you've just got to put this down to it's just been one of them matches where you've not really had the opportunities, have you? He's not really had any table time. Cast your mind back when he went for that ball that Ko Ping-yi missed. He chopped it in and then scratched, quite unlucky, off a thin clip on the green 6, I believe it was, and the cue ball went in the right centre. And since then, he's just been a spectator.
So this should be another one for him. As you say, Carl, when you're 8-1 up, you really have everything to lose at that stage, don't you? Because you're expected to get through comfortably from a position like that. You lose a few racks, suddenly you start to think, well, this might take some getting over if I lose this. Now, we're not at that stage yet, but I think if it gets back to about 8-5, then Chua, who needed to win 8 racks in a row, will have completed half the task. So let's not write this one off just yet.
Classy run out. Wasn't easy, was it? You had to come with some big shots.
Yeah, nothing wrong with Chua's game at all. I have to wonder what sort of a different contest it might have been, with him clearly playing well, if he hadn't had that scratch early on. So that's 8-3. Ko Ping-yi, the only player currently on the hill in winners qualification round, but quite a few players are on 7, including his brother Ko Ping-chung, 7-3 against Wenan Tan. Naoyuki Oi also 7-3 over the British veteran Imran Majid. Alexa Peschelge now 7-2 up over Dimitri Jungo. And Jason Shaw 7-5 against Bezar Spahiu. Also 7-5 for Duong Kwok Hwang against Petri Makinen. Dimitris Lukatos 7-4 over Skylar Woodward. Jeffrey Ignacio 7-3 against Niels Fayen. And João Grillo also won away from the hill. As I told you, he's 7-6 up on the world champion Francisco Sanchez Ruiz. And while I was giving you those scores, Ko Ping-chung's total clicked over to 8. So he's on the hill now at 8-3 against Wenan Tan. So a race between the two Ko brothers to be the next one through. Tolian Han on the hill in losers round 3. Michael Feliciano, who would have been fancied for a deep run here, is going to have to win the last 5 racks to stay in it. 7-3 to the Singapore player. Bernie Regalario is 5-4 up in that round against So Shaw. And Ko Ping Han, the other Ko brother, has a 5-3 lead over Petter Urban.
Ko Ping Yi has got a chance to win the match and book his spot in the final 64. It's a dry break from Chua, and he has a shot at the 1 ball. And having a quick glance at the table layout, as long as he gets this first shot right, it's pretty much should be match over.
Another player on the hill is Naoki Oi at 8-3 against Imran Majid. And more interesting news from table 20. Bazar Spahu has won the 13th rack, so again he's only 1 behind against Jason Shaw. That one is 7-6.
What about table 4, Michael? Mario He.
Yeah, against Clint Ianson. Well, the British player is opening a bit of a lead there. 6-4 now. As I said, he's had a couple of wins already, and that would be by far his biggest result yet in this tournament if he could knock out the 2-time World Cup winner. Francisco Sanchez Ruiz has battled back well. He's back on level terms now with João Grillo of Portugal. That one is 7-all. We could have a lot of players closing out their matches in the next 10 or 15 minutes. Ko Ping Yi may well get his one a lot sooner than that. Dimitris Lukatos, a quarter-finalist here last year, is now on the hill at 8-4 against Skylar Woodward.
He'll just float over to the left side of the table. Well, this is the brother of Ko Ping Yi, Ko Ping Chung, who's on the hill as well. Same scoreline, 8-3 over Wenan Tan. So this is going to be a race to see who gets into the final 64 first.
You don't often see this, do you? I think Ko Ping Chung's a slight favourite to get there before his brother.
Well, Ko Ping Yi did not hit the 5 clean, but because it was really close to the rail, that ball fell. So Ko Ping Chung with this 9 ball will be the first Ko brother through to the final 64, and he won't have long to wait by the looks of it for his older brother.
Ko Ping Chung, the US Open champion, and will be the UK Open champion by Sunday night. He's through to single elimination.
I bet this hasn't happened often, Michael. The 2 brothers are playing on table 1 and 2, and before Ko Ping Chung's probably packed all his stuff away, Ko Ping Yi will be shaking hands and they'll be walking out pretty much at the same time.
Well, look, it's brilliant timing. I mean, here in the UK, 1 o'clock is regarded as lunchtime, so they timed it perfectly to go and get something to eat together. Although they'll probably go and watch their 3rd brother finish his match first.
Yeah, I'm just wondering before the match if they said, "I'll see you at 1 o'clock, buddy."
Must be wonderful to be that good at the game that you can plan things like that. So within a few moments, the 2 Ko brothers, 2 of the 3, have gone through. Ko Ping Yi played very well. He was helped a little bit by that scratch from Johann Chua in the 2nd rack, and that really set Ko Ping Yi on his way. He had a golden break in rack 3. He had 3 break and runs soon after that, and with a fine performance, he has gone through by 9 racks to 3. So much happening here on this 3rd day of the UK Open, and the action will continue in this round in a few minutes' time. Anton Raga of the Philippines, who so nearly won the European Open in Germany last summer, up against Alvin Anggito of Indonesia. And we'll be back with you in just a few minutes for full coverage of that.
I'd have loved to have seen America versus the Philippines, Europe versus the Philippines.
And I think there will be the winner of the Moscone against Asia or against the Philippines at some stage. There's a different tournament.
There's definitely something on another event to do with Asia versus the Moscone Cup winner, and that's all part of the bigger plan.
We've seen plenty of perspiration. Now we're seeing inspiration.
Listen to the noise. This is to tie the match up.
It all would have been there for him. My word!
He's done it! And he shocked the tournament.